You're listening to Standing Before the Mast podcast with Chris Heaton, sponsored by Newport Nautical Supply.
It's a Sunday afternoon in late May, before Memorial Day weekend, and I'm on board the legendary 12-meter Intrepid. The last several weeks had brought pretty gusty winds to our area, but today we had a stiff southerly around 18 knots with slightly higher gusts. We're on a close reach towards the southwest out of Newport Harbor, headed for Jamestown. Captain Mike Patterson is in the cockpit and is calling the overall tactical plan and explaining what his expectation of the afternoon sail will be. Whitney Curtin is moving around from foredeck to back aft, coordinating the regular cruise jobs in concert with some guests who want to lend a hand. Intrepid has a bone in her teeth and is moving between 8 and 9 knots. Mike makes the call to get ready to crack off as we make a turn to the north and head up under the Newport Pell Bridge. Aaron Isaacson, or Ike, works the main with another crew member. Now running north, the boat flattens out and we scream up under the Newport Bridge. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought I just stepped aboard one of the many charters available for the general public to book aboard a classic 12-meter. The guests were a mix of couples and friends, some with sailing experience on their own boats and some along for the ride. But there was one big difference. The man at the helm is blind. Steve Baskis is an Army veteran who, in May of 2008, in the heart of Baghdad, Iraq, sustained life-threatening wounds that changed his life forever. Aaron Ike Isaacson also served, joining the Army after September 11, 2001. During one of his many deployments, Ike had sustained a serious leg injury. I'd been invited aboard and given a front row seat to witness a new group that had been formed. The group is called Sail to Win. The mission of Sail to Win is, and I'm going to take this right from their website, to honor and empower wounded veterans, first responders, and people that have served their community with disabilities by training, educating, and competing in sailing competitions around the globe. They bring adaptive and able-bodied athletes together, conduct training events, and facilitate opportunities for technology experts to assist service members with solutions that will help them become highly competitive in sailing and increase their everyday quality of life. I quickly realized that while Steve and Ike may have sustained serious physical injuries that will stay with them for life, two things that weren't taken from either of them was their determination and drive. After a decent run up towards the south end of Prudence Island, it was now time to harden up and tack back down to Newport. Again, with Steve stationed at the helm, Mike called the overall tactical plan while Whitney made sure boat, crew, and guests were ready for the maneuvers, and we made our way back down the bay. Aided by some new technology and Mike's suggestions, Steve brought us back to Newport. Along the way, we traded some tacks with Heritage, another classic 12-meter. That was the first day of 2. The second day was pretty much like the first, this time with Ike getting some more helm time and with fewer guests on board. Back at the dock on day 2, Mike Patterson, Whitney Curtin, Steve Baskis, Ike, and myself sat below deck on Intrepid and talked about Sail to Win. They each shared a bit of their background, how the program came together, and what they see for the future. And that's where this podcast begins. I'll be back at the end to provide a few important links that were mentioned in our talk.
Okay, yeah, this is Ike. My name is Aaron Isaacson, but everybody calls me Ike. We are Sail to Win, the Sail to Win Foundation, with Mike Patterson, Whitney Curtin, and with us is Steve Baskis. Our nonprofit is focused on working with wounded veterans, getting them involved in sailing, mostly involved in offshore big races. And, it's all in the name. It's Sail to Win. That's our intent. We want to get out there. We want to win. And, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, this is Mike Patterson here. We're sitting on board Intrepid, a boat I've been running for 23 years now. And we've been using this to start our training for Sail to Win, working with Steve Baskis, getting him some helm time. And Whitney and myself have both sailed this boat for a lot of miles, a lot of years. And it's a good platform to just get used to sailing and get us ready for the next boat where we'll push things a little further before we go offshore.
Hi, this is Whitney Curtin. I think Mike and Ike have done a pretty good brief introduction into Sail to Win, which is our foundation. And, we're in the early stages of trying to set up hopefully a long running offshore sailing program that focuses on working with wounded veterans and first responders and integrating them into, high performance professional sailing teams and going off and getting out there. And I think Steve is our first, the first one. That's probably a fair word.
Yeah. How did this all come about?
Well, I think I'd probably defer to Ike. It's kind of his initial idea and concept. It came about to me last year. Ike approached me. We'd sailed together, Mike, Ike, and myself, about 10 years ago starting. And kind of in the years that transpired since then, I went off and joined some other teams and did sailing elsewhere. Mike stayed here with Intrepid, running the boat and racing and taking care of 12 meters here in Newport. And Ike has continued sailing while working outside of the sailing industry and traveling a lot. And he approached Mike and me just saying, he's done a lot of mountaineering and a lot of cool expeditions since he finished serving as a Steve. And Ike, I'll let you take it from here kind of, but approached us basically wanting to take that model that he'd done climbing mountains, we're working with wounded vets and first responders and put it into a platform that worked for offshore sailing. And our history together, just being on the water and having sailed in the past, it was a kind of a natural progression and conversation to have. And I got pretty keen on the idea immediately and just kind of jumped to the opportunity. We've been, slowly getting rolling since then. I'll let Ike kind of explain how he came up with the idea and what made him want to pursue this and reach out to the rest of us.
Okay. Yeah. I guess just to jump in, to go back a little bit further. So on my third combat deployment, it was in Afghanistan. I ended up breaking my leg on an operation in the mountains along the Pakistan border. I was medevaced out and laying in a hospital bed for a while, waiting for surgery on my leg. And in that process, I decided to really focus on, apparently I'm going to survive this place. So what comes next? What have I always wanted to do that I never took the opportunity to pursue? And that was mountaineering and sailing. And so after leg surgery and rehabilitation period, which took a while, I reached out to Eric Weinmayer, the blind climber that has summited the 7 summits blind, broken a number of other records. And he said, "Hey, we're taking some wounded veterans to Nepal to climb Mount Lobuche." And I signed up for that. And that's how we started to do training in Colorado in the mountains. And that's where I met Steve Baskis, who's here with us today. So we we completed the summit to Mount Lobuche in Nepal. Then Steve and I got together to climb various other mountains. We both ended up by accident. We were supposed to climb Mount Elbrus in Russia, the tallest mountain on that continent. It turned out to be quite a wild story that we won't get into on this podcast, or we can later if we want. But so we ended up summiting at different times. You did summit that, right, Steve?
I can't remember now.
There's been so many.
I didn't see the summit.
Say that again?
I didn't see the summit.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, and Steve has gotten into sailing throughout that time frame as well. And I got the idea that I've always wanted to compete in the transatlantic and other large global races and, take it to the next level. And so I called Steve and said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this?" He said, "Let's do it." So then the next step is, how are we going to do that? And so we had the regattas here in Newport that I kept coming back to for the last 10 years, wherever I was living in the world. I lived in Africa for 5 years. I lived in the Middle East off and on for maybe 6 or 7 years. I would always come back to the regattas on Intrepid through the summertime here in Newport, which is fantastic. I thought I've got to talk to Whitney. I've got to talk to Mike and just see what their thoughts are. And that's how it kind of came about. To my surprise, they said, yeah, let's do it. I thought there's no way they'd want to sign up to do anything with me, but, and here we are today. So, it's taken a little bit of time, from last summer to this point as spring, kicks off. This is our first time in the water yesterday and today, for the year 2022. It's going to be quite a summer and, looking forward to it. So that's kind of how the story came about in summary.
Okay. And why don't we pass it over to Steve and get a little bit of his background. And
so, hi, my name is Steve Baskis. We're here in the bowels of the Intrepid. And now, it's really cool to be part of these kinds of projects, adventures. As some of the other individuals mentioned, I've been part of different types of expeditions, recreation, sports, adaptive athletics, whatever you want to call it. I served in the Army like Ike. I was wounded in May of 2008 on the ground in Baghdad and lost all my sight because of a blast injury. Lost good friends, while serving. And the experience of serving in the Army holds a lot of things in the sense of like teamwork and objectives and an overall mission to accomplish things. And I was able-bodied. I didn't have a problem. You lose your ability, a sense, like for me, my sight. I have many friends that have lost other things, and it just changes you completely. And of course, laying in the hospital bed, kind of like Ike, I was wondering what my life was going to be moving forward. And I guess I realized, I have the power to make a decision to better myself and try to be the best blind guy I could be. That's kind of what I was thinking. And sports and recreation or activity that gets you moving, it makes you feel alive. I have this saying, moving is living, living is moving. And I stare into a still world. And so whether that's on a sailboat or climbing mountains, I've kayaked rivers all across the country, the whole Colorado River, 226 miles of it. And in all these projects and expeditions, we're trying to solve problems and we're trying to heal our mind. And I think that's a lot of what this whole project and what we're trying to stand up and what we're trying to do and show people. I want to be resourceful and independent. I want to be skilled in something. I want to learn whatever I can to be an asset to a team. And it's so cool that people give themselves, to this idea, this dream, this endeavor, and give me a chance, because I tell people all the time, I haven't changed inside. I'm the same person I was before I lost my sight. I had dreams and goals to do things, but the way the world treats you, society treats you as someone that's broken or disabled. I like to say, don't diss my ability, but it's just, it's just a great thing to be part of something like this, and it'll be wild where it goes.
Now you have your own foundation. Is that correct?
I do run a small nonprofit foundation called Blind Endeavors. Mm-hmm. And it relates to adaptive athletics and recreation. And we primarily serve blind individuals in Georgia and the western slope of Colorado, teaming them with some British veterans, blind veterans and American blind veterans, and doing like tandem cycling, and other things, getting people out, moving, and trying to help them rebuild their life, drive them to do something, other than sit at home and dwell on the past and what you've lost.
And will this program tie into your foundation at all, or are they separate entities?
They're separate entities, but I hope that we can maybe work together and with other organizations, whether it's partnering to do something or do research for technology that might aid in safety or giving people more ability or independence. I think it's paramount that we do collaborate.
Now, we were sailing yesterday and today here, and you've been sailing on this 12 meter. What are the plans to move forward with? I heard chatter about different boats and a bigger plans. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I can say a little bit and then pass it off maybe to someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, the organization, I think, is going to grow and change, of course, but I think we're hoping to acquire a boat or boats to help with and aid, my training and my skill set, and we're working towards that. Some of the other guys here are better informed in that regard, but definitely trying to acquire boats or boat to do this initial kind of training and get my feet wet or not wet, hopefully. But
Not too wet.
I don't know. Yeah. If you want someone else to comment on that specifically or.
Whitney's pointing the mic there.
Oh, Mike here. We're taking this incrementally. Intrepid's here, a boat that we can use. America's Cup Charters, who I'm involved with, lets us use it. And the goal is to take this in steps. So I think we'll focus more on a smaller boat next. So there's part of the problem with the big 12 meters, 63,000 pounds. Every time we make a change or a slight heading change, the boat carries so much momentum. It's really hard to feel what's going on. So a smaller boat, we expect more responsiveness. So we've got a couple of options, maybe some J22s, maybe we also have a C&C 30 that's available to use. We're not quite ready for that, but we'll hop into that pretty soon. And now the long-term goal into ocean racing is obviously a much bigger boat. But I think your quality of time spent on a smaller boat, it's a steeper learning curve. You're going to learn quicker. But ideally, we end up offshore. Hopefully by next winter, we start doing some longer and longer races, down in Florida, back up here for the summer, and just keep moving forward until we're ready. We have to do the prerequisites for the race and also for ourselves. So it's going to be a series of short-term goals. And then the long-term goal that is set so far is transatlantic. And once we've obtain that, then it's what's next. Do we do another transatlantic? Do we look somewhere else in the world? Do we go for a trans-Pacific to Hawaii? So there's a lot of options out there, but right now we're looking through to a transatlantic and what's our best way to get there. It's all less than a year now since we formed, but we're getting as much time on the water as we can and put in the effort to get the word out and get more and more people involved. So that's what this is all about.
The transatlantic portion, is that a goal? Is there a specific race or regatta event, or are you just going to do it when you're ready on your own schedule?
Well, we have to be ready.
Right.
It would be nice to join the one that's supposed to be running next year.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not we're there yet depends a lot on what our training schedule is like for the next 6 months. The transatlantic could be many things. I mean, we could just do it on our own. I like looking at the Charlie Barr record set in I'd have to look that up, but that's like just over 12 days. And that's from Sandy Point to the Lizard. So that's one goal, which if we can't make the New York Yacht Club basic Royal Yacht Squadron transatlantic and hit the prerequisites for that. So we're open to either right now, not 100% dedicated to either version.
And what type of boat do you foresee yourself using for that?
Not a 30-footer. It's what the market has. I mean, we've been looking in the 60, 65-foot range. There's safety concerns. I mean, we need to make sure we're on a good, solid boat that is designed for offshore racing. I mean, Newport's full of fast boats that, I'm afraid to go more than 10 miles offshore. And not a 12 meter. That's not the right kind of boat. So we've got our eyes on a couple of boats right now, but until something happens, I'm not going to get into which boats, but fast ocean going 60 some odd foot boat.
And do you have an ideal crew size and structure? And sort of, we've got Steve and Ike, and you have more wounded veterans, or would you more regular crew? How do you see that playing out?
I mean, I think from the veteran size, the idea is to mix professional and veterans. I think about 4 on the veteran side or service industry, people that have been wounded in action of some sort. And as far as the crew, Whitney's been given a lot of thought to that, and he's got a pretty good idea about the crew size and watch rotations. It's all kind of open right now because we don't have a boat. So exactly how many, we don't know, but maybe Whitney speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think Mike covered it pretty well in that you can't get into the minutia of crew and those decisions until you know kind of what platform you're using. And we obviously want to get out there and send it as much as possible. But the primary concern has to be on safety. You're going to have wounded veterans on board. You're going to have film crew on board, people who aren't necessarily well accustomed to offshore sailing environment. Obviously, by the time we set off on a transatlantic, they will be more accustomed than anyone would be today, as will Mike and Ike and myself. Every hour and mile out there is just a little bit more under your belt, more knowledge to pull from. But I think, what Mike said, ideally finding, around 4 wounded first responders and veterans and integrating them into a crew of professional sailors. There are nonprofits and foundations that work with wounded veterans and with people who are seeing impaired and have other disabilities. And I think what we envision and hope for is to kind of be the next step in that progression. I mean, obviously it's of vital importance just to show people who may be struggling and not wanting to get out of the house or need a push to kind of get out there and have a new experience, a weekend of sailing on a dinghy and just showing what is out there and what's possible is hugely beneficial. I think our goal is to cater that focus to a smaller group of people, but a bigger experience to rather than a weekend. It's, more than getting out and going dinghy sailing for 3 days. You can be on a team. It doesn't matter whether you can see or not, or if you have, a limb amputated. It doesn't matter what someone is dealing with, with the right attitude and the right group of people and work ethic, you can put together a unit. And so the idea is to kind of tailor our focus and really just build a team that's a nice mix of pro sailors and people who are wounded in service. And like Mike said, it's a gradual process. So it'll start doing sailing, on and off the dock in the same day. And then it'll be on the 30-footer, maybe doing some overnights just here in New England, and then hopefully getting to Florida and doing kind of some coastal distance racing. And as things develop, you reassess and see where you are and kind of continue with the path that makes most sense. I think we're in a good position on the veteran side. I can speak more to that, but I think people are interested in getting involved. So the hurdles that we've been dealing with kind of in the past year and in the immediate future are more just the logistics that come with establishing a nonprofit and the accounting and the legal and all the things of that caliber that, aren't related to being on the water, but that you need to have established. So I think it's an exciting prospect, and I think it's, a very accomplishable and viable goal, but it'll take a lot of hard work and a lot of people who support the cause.
Right. And you think maybe participating in certain well-known regattas on those smaller boats as you're building would be a good way to build awareness?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think, anytime you're seen out there or you're able to talk to someone and just kind of explain what our foundation is about and what our mission is. And, there's so much of this industry is word of mouth and just kind of people, one person knows one person and makes, that's how I've gotten almost every job I've ever had in this industry. It's just, people talking. And so any awareness we can raise, I think will be hugely beneficial. And then I also think, any time on the water is beneficial in a different way. You need to build the foundation and acquire the funding and make sure everything on that side of the project is secure. And you also have to get proficient on the water and become a cohesive unit that can race a boat well and safely.
I got bits and pieces of that in the mostly yesterday when we were out there. I've been on a couple of times on 12 meters, but on other charter boats. And when Steve was at the helm, I had to say, Mike was giving sort of tactical references and we were running around at your direction doing different tasks. Steve was steering. He was at the helm. He was in control. And if I didn't know any better and I just stepped on the boat, I wouldn't have known about your blindness. It was just, I've been on boats before and like you're the captain. So you're saying, okay, we got to pay attention to this or that. And then there's deck organization to be done. And it felt very well orchestrated right off the bat.
We'll take it.
I'm not speaking for a wealth of experience, but it felt pretty, synchronized.
Yeah. Well, we've been from a crew dynamic position. We've been working at this. We've been out only a handful of times, but Steve's got a good sense of where the boat's going, where the wind is. We have a little bit of technology that helps him out. We're developing. So he gets a little extra help that way. But basically, especially here on Intrepid, I basically call the overall picture. Whitney is in charge of the crew and whoever else we have on board. Whitney sailed with me for thousands of miles and knows every position on the boat. So he's able to bounce around. Ike knows a couple of positions on the boat that he's done racing here. He's been a grinder with the Intrepid team for 12 years, I believe. And a grinder is a great way to learn about sail trim because he's staring at the same thing. And Ike is moving into the trimming position. Ultimately, we're all going to be basically at some point doing every position. But the crew dynamics there, we all get along. We don't fight with each other yet. And with Steve on the helm has really been extraordinary. What these guys have been through and what they bring and the determination that they have is just, I'm privileged to watch this and be a part of it. So it's really interesting. And he's picking it up quick. He's got a good sense for where the breeze is coming from. And that's one of the most important fundamental things you could have.
Back to Ike.
And the guys just hit the nail on the head as I was listening there. What really sets us apart is that we are really a platform to compete, to win, hence the name. A lot of organizations do a very good job of getting people that have the desire out on the water, in this sport that we love. But we really do want to take it to the next level. I think Whitney touched on that. So we really want to get out there on a global scale, and we want to incorporate these guys that are still highly competitive. Steve he's blind, but he's super competitive. That comes with the folks that joined, especially, in my peer group that joined after the September 11 attacks, but they're still highly competitive people willing to go the extra mile in whatever sport that they're in to get out there and push it. And so again, in our peer group, Steve and I would say that that's still there. They may be missing an arm or a leg or blind, or they can't hear, whatever the case may be, but they don't want to sit on the sidelines and watch people compete at brass tacks. They want to be in the competitions as well. So that's really what sets us apart. And I'm really honored to be a part of it.
In planning this, had you looked at other programs and saw where they had gone or maybe where they had stopped and thought, okay, we're gonna go in this direction, or we're gonna take it a step further, or did you come up with your own plan almost from scratch off the top of your head?
I think it came naturally. When Steve and I spoke about it on a number of phone calls, it was we want to get out there and make this happen. On the water. How do we do that? And it started with, of course, the transatlantic race that occurs every 4 years. It started in 1866. There's history there. There's a lot of competitive people around the globe that spotlight that and want to be a part of it. And why can't we?
Right.
It's like, why can't we do that? How do we build the team to do that? And that's what we're doing. If I can touch on also the mission mindset that I think Steve and we kind of grew up in after about 2010 forward in that nonprofit mission mindset. What came out of all those multiple deployments are, the late night phone calls that you get at 2-3 in the morning, and you know exactly what they are. And it's guys that you served with that are going through a really rough patch, and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so the mission mindset really speaks to getting them out of that place that they're in, that dark place that they're in, getting them back with their buddies out in nature, whether it's on a mountaintop or on a sailboat or anywhere else, out in nature with good people and focusing on the mission at hand. Like if the transatlantic is the mission at hand, what is the planning and preparation that needs to go into that? Logistics support, all of it. Who has the expertise? How can we get it if we don't have it? And then conducting the mission itself, sailing across the Atlantic, the ups and downs. There's danger involved. Maybe you achieve success, maybe you don't. But surviving and keeping your brothers alive and sisters through that process. And then the after action review at the end of it. And then preparing for the next mission. So that's what we've trained really hard to perform with our military service. And that's a good way to get back in action, I guess, after going through a traumatic experience.
So you've actually taken a template that you've used in your military service, right, and applied it right to this.
Right. And, when Steve and I got into mountaineering about 10 years ago, that was the focus, and that was presented to me through Eric Weinmayer's foundation. That's the way they viewed it, and I thought it was perfect. And I'm really happy that I came across that because it really worked. When it comes to mountaineering, it's a little bit easier because you can get off of that mountain summit, do the after action review, and you don't necessarily have to have the same crew for the next quote unquote mission. You take what you learned from that mountaineering expedition and you maybe find a new group of friends, buddies, and you start the prep, plan, mission mindset again for the next thing. We happen to have a boat in mind and big world races. And so those are our major missions. We'll have small missions along the way with that as the end game. But that's what drives people with military background. That's what they know it. I mean, they know it and they want it badly, I think.
Right. And I imagine, I haven't done a mountaineering expedition, but there are a lot of crossover similarities when it comes to, planning, equipment. You have weather considerations, right. You have medical considerations if something goes wrong. Right. A lot of that will translate quite easily as a template to move forward.
Yeah. Right. And just getting through whatever it is. And it's going to be, it's not going to be a cruise. It's not going to be pleasant on these large, jaunts that we're getting ready for on these sailing missions that we're setting up for. It's not going to be pleasant. It's going to be rough. And we know that going into it. And I think that's part of what drives us as well. Life is too soft and too easy back here.
Now, did you make a documentary about your Steve's mountain expedition?
Did I say that correctly? I'll hand this over to Steve in a second. What we did was we got roped in. Eric Weinmayer had set up. He's got a nonprofit called No Barriers. Mm-hmm. He'd been working with people that various injuries that they've had throughout life, and getting them out into the mountains. And then they had the idea to bring in 11 of us wounded veterans back in 2010. So it was a group of professional climbers. It was a group of 11 of wounded veterans. And we had a film crew from Chirac Films. It's really about the whole team. So it's about the professional climbers working with wounded veterans. It was, it took a month on the expedition to climb Mount Elbrus. It's awesome to go through the Khumbu Valley And I know Steve can attest to this. The view is incredible. But no, really, the Khumbu Valley, we moved up through there. The mountain is near Mount Everest. So the second that I personally reached the summit in so much pain and you're sick, you haven't slept well, you reach the summit and you just feel that amazement of reaching the summit. And then your eyes focus on that looming Mount Everest that's not too far away. And it continues to go into the sky, into the clouds. And you're like, wow, I thought I reached the top of the world, but there's more to go.
What is the summit altitude there?
It's just under 21,000 feet on Lobuche. Oof. But I'm going to hand this over to Steve.
Sure.
From my perspective, the benefits of something like this, we talk about, having a team, having equipment, having training. And I think it's just good for the listeners because they maybe they don't hear this or they don't, maybe they don't quite understand how something like this can help veterans or help people that were driven or disciplined in something, their service occupation. And I think climbing mountains, it translates. Whatever you're doing, I mean, in life, we grow up and we learn how to do things. We become creatures of habit. We learn how to take care of ourselves. And I think when you lose, an ability or you have traumatic experience and it changes your mindset, getting on a trip like this or on a journey or an adventure, an expedition, whatever you want to call it, it pulls you out of this safety bubble that society kind of wants to put you in. I feel like the threshold was high and then it's dropped low for you and you are treated differently. Like I've said before, and it can become a rut. It can become something that is like almost poison, I think, for someone. You start to live a life where you don't try to pursue big things. You just are dictated, the circumstance has dictated something for you and you lose control. And when I started out doing these kinds of adventures, I have to break free of being afraid of leaving the house, trusting people, trusting the cab driver, just trying to get to a location. And the whole time I'm doing that, I'm learning systems, new techniques, new operating procedures that will benefit me in my everyday living. When I come on a boat like this, I have fears. There could be fears of being hit with lines, stepping stepping into, the abyss of the, boat or off the boat. And it teaches you to be strong and it teaches you to have courage again and really find yourself. I call it, a lot of guys will in the industry, serving in the military will call it like reestablishing a new normal. What is normal? I mean, I don't know what normal is really, but we have to try to find a new way of living, and pushing the threshold high just means when you come back home and you're sitting on the beach relaxing, life's pretty easy, pretty cool. That's how I look at it. I just thought I should frame that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. I noticed you talked about, there are new fears when you're introduced to a new situation. And though we'd been on the boat on the second day now, when we're steaming back after the wind died, you just sat where Mike told you to hang out. And you sort of just casually asked, how far down is the water? And I thought at first it just went in one ear and out the other because I thought I was just curious about the freeboard of the vessel. But then now that you've said it differently, you're constantly surveying your surroundings.
Yeah. I mean, I think blindness is a fear for a lot of people. I mean, blindness, the word is used in many ways, not necessarily literal vision loss or sight loss, but like the unknown path or direction that we're moving in sometimes in life. All of us, those unknown things can cause us anxiety and frustration. And I feel like, just like maybe a lot of driven soldiers or Marines, airmen, sailors, they are hard chargers. They want to be challenged. I think it's good for everybody, whether you are, you want to live a soft life, a hard life. Those challenges help you feel successful, even if you fail. I mean, my loss of sight is a failure. I mean, sometimes in my mind, maybe that's not the right way to think about it. I don't dwell on it that way, but yeah, failure failure is good. I mean, it gives us our ups and downs, and when you can surpass those challenges, that adversity, doing something like this you pick yourself up, you keep moving. And that's what's so cool about being part of these kinds of adventure and challenges.
You mentioned, I think yesterday, I heard you talking about kayak the whole Colorado River.
Yeah.
Now, in my mind, I've been whitewater rafting on the Arkansas River, and we wound up in the wrong set of rapids, and we flipped the boat, and some people wound up on the right bank, the left bank, and it was a big mess.
Yeah.
In my mind, that was more scary than what goes on a boat with a crew that knows what they're doing. Did you feel that situation was more intimidating, being in a kayak versus being on a boat with?
I kind of look at every experience or situation, that I'm going to pursue as dangerous. People cross the street and they get hit by a car. So, right. I mean, it's really interesting how people rate danger and become complacent. Danger is always there in everything that we do, really. Definitely, there's a lot of fear kayaking whitewater blind. I've kayaked the Platte, the Poudre, the New River, the Salmon. I've been on the Deschutes in different sections, training in my own hard shell. I'm in my own independent river kayak, and I'm working with a team of 3. But on a sailboat, I've not done really big open water, long distance sailing. So what are those unknowns they're in my mind. I'm thinking about what's the dangers, what am I afraid of internally, that maybe I don't even share with others. And there's something there everywhere, it's an adventure every day for me, because I'm always having to adapt, and the unknown is always there in unfamiliar places. So I think that's big. That's going to be big in the training for this, is knowing the boat, knowing where I need to go. These things, we're talking about it constantly, Mike and I and others, Whitney here. I ask questions, and I'm reading in my own time. But yeah.
And when you engage in these adventures and these projects, are you single-minded? In other words, right now you're doing, or today at the moment, you're doing the boat thing. Is it, okay, well, I'm going to stick with this until I've achieved those goals? Or do you have other ones running concurrently, such as, I'm going back to a mountain expedition or a bicycling trek while this is all going on, and you do everything concurrently? They're
all lifelong pursuits.
So it's happening.
I have a garage full of all kinds of equipment, tandem bikes and kayaks. And yeah, I throughout the year, COVID has made it somewhat difficult for teams, it's not difficult to go in the wilderness and get away from COVID, but COVID has caused a lot of problems in some of the organized things I do with people. But I'm constantly, going back home. I live in Colorado, so I'm alpine skiing. I've Nordic skied, it's a constant thing for me. It's my life. I don't want to sit still. So,
right. But you're not going to let preparing for this trip, when ski season comes around again, it's right back to the slope, right?
Yeah. I mean,
keep it going.
It's just, constant. It's just doing something, somewhere on some part of the globe. Yeah. That's how it is. And
I think we were talking earlier, because we both have an interest in music, and you're a musician. You're attending a program at Berklee School of Music in Boston, but you're doing it remotely. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that they've got some technology that's made that.
Yeah, I mean, there's technology that's some manufacturers like Apple have created something called a screen reader. They've been around since the 80s. It's speech that basically guides me, speaks the screen and my location, whether it's a flat screen like a touch screen, phone, or and that kind of technology, among other things, is what we hope to kind of incorporate, in this adventure and this journey of creating this organization. I'm going to school, and I'm using that screen reader to interact with my curriculum and my assignments and stuff. And it's pretty cool. Yeah. Cool. But it's wonderful to be part of.
That's excellent. Back to Mike. You're going to be part of the program throughout.
Yeah, that's the goal. We're all Ike, myself, and Whitney have formed the private operating foundation. We're still in some process on paperwork, but it is well on its way, and it's a real thing. So yeah, we're moving forward.
And if people want to follow this, you'll have a website.
Yeah, right now there's a website, sail2win.org, and it is spelled T-O, sail2win.org. There's also a Facebook up, and we're about to get an Instagram and maybe a Twitter going. But none of us are very tech savvy that way, but we're working on it, and we know some people. We got a guy coming tomorrow that could probably help us with that a little more. But yeah, check out the website. Ike built it. It's working and it's up and running.
And you'll have regular updates about the progress of.
Yeah. We'll update. We have some videos up there now, and we'll have updates, and eventually. We're hoping to have a movie trailer up pretty soon.
Oh, wow.
Ike's been working with that for the documentary. The documentary is pretty exciting. Ike has most of the insight on what's going on there.
Oh, let's hear about that.
You in there.
That's right. I learned as we were up the bay that I was in the presence of someone with an actual IMDb page. So,
yeah, that's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I was in the reality TV show Expedition Impossible on ABC. But anyway, IMDb, that's funny you mentioned that, because I got back from that TV show and somebody said, "You have an IMDb account?" And I said, no. And it turns out they make them for you. So that was very interesting. So yeah, the film... so I spoke with the same Michael Brown is with Serac Films, who filmed our Nepal expedition, and I spoke with him about this project and said, do you have an interest? What are your thoughts on this? And he said, yeah, that's something that we need to be a part of. So we are working on that currently. We started filming last fall here in Newport, and we're continuing to catch little bits of film here and there. The trailer should be coming out within the next month or so. Yeah, the film will take us all the way through this process of growth into the actual transatlantic, capturing everything. We'll have a film crew member or two with us on the boat. And then, however that turns out, then they'll release the film. The film, Serac Films partnered with Disney to produce the film that we were in called High Ground back in 2011. It received some awards. It was a pretty cool thing to be a part of. Really interesting to watch the process. But anyway, we're kind of in that process right now as we speak. And all of the filming we've conducted so far has been in Newport. And
is the film trailer going to be something used as a tool to help build awareness and fundraising efforts? That sort of thing.
That's the goal. Yeah. But I mean, the trailer is to get people interested in what we're doing and to help us, move the football down the field. But, the real purpose of the documentary film is to show really, what it takes, not only what it takes to do an event like that, but, the good, bad, and the ugly, the difficulties with missing eyesight, whatever else comes down the road. It's not going to be easy. It should be a pretty interesting film to watch.
When I came to me about this is unlike anything I've ever done. I sail for a living. It's all I'm thinking about is racing sailboats, and also at the same time running a charter company. So I've got another good friend, Sean Claybo, that was blown up multiple times as well. And I never served. What these guys did and putting themselves on the line. And if there's any way that I can give back to that, I think that's really important. And, that was an instant thing for me. It's like I've watched friends that were in the military, and I've lost friends that were in the military, and I myself never was there. I never did it. Right. Never even thought about it. So it's a way I can give back. If I can help out and help these guys and girls out in this adventure, I think that's awesome. And it coincides with what I do.
Right. You just said something that made me think. Is there a gender specification? Is it going to be a crew of all men, or is it whoever wants to participate?
I think it's all inclusive.
All inclusive.
I mean, I think that's really important.
Right.
There's religion, race, gender. It's everybody. I mentioned earlier, there's service, the industry as well. I mean, first responders, fire, everything down to ER workers. There's people that really put themselves on the line for the rest of us. And I'm out here playing with yachts, so I'd like to give something back.
And to add on that real quick, it's to bring more people to the sport too. I mean, it's we love sailing, and these are people like myself who I was laying in a hospital bed thinking, man, I've always had a passion for this. I wanted to get involved, but I just didn't know how. Well, we're bringing people from all walks of life to the sport too. I mean, that's important to us as well.
I wondered about that. How many people, other than the get off the couch problem, how many people have been injured and or lying there thinking, what am I going to do now? Don't even know that these programs exist. Does the military help guide you in the right direction?
Early on, no, but now it's gotten better with time. So yeah, they'll be able to find us pretty easily. I think we already have a number of folks that are lining up to jump in and get on the water with us, and that's pretty exciting.
Just doing a little casual research, I did stumble across a video that it looked like it was produced and approved by the U.S. Army, featuring Steve, saying, "Look what he's accomplished."
Sure. Yeah, there is. Yeah, the Army is definitely supportive. Yeah, in fact, they sponsored all of us and myself on the Nepal climb. So yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They did. So yeah.
Did you have anything you wanted to add? I see they handed you the mic.
No, I think, firstly from us, thank you very much for having us on and giving us an opportunity to try and raise awareness about our goals and our mission and what we're pursuing. Every person who's aware, who's interested, that's beneficial to us. That's beneficial to the people that we're trying to help. So thank you very much for having us. And we look forward to getting on the water with you again and hopefully talking to more people about the Sail to Win Foundation and about our goals.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, maybe if we could do an update down the road.
Absolutely.
As you get new boats or the program takes an interesting tack, to use a.
We love to talk about ourselves. So anytime you want to have us on,
Yeah. Right on. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that was my talk with Mike Patterson, Whitney Curtin, Steve Baskis, and Aaron Isaacson, or Ike, from Sail to Win. And again, I'd like just to reiterate their website is sailtowin.org. That's Sail to Win. They have their mission defined, team profiles, and also contact information, how you can get involved, and of course the usual social media links. And it's probably a good resource if you want to follow along or get involved or contribute in any way you can. Also, I think we mentioned they'd mentioned their mountaineering expeditions up Mount Lobuche, which was documented in the film High Ground, which was released in 2012, directed by Michael Brown. I did watch it after I sat down with these guys, and it's very powerful. Steve and Ike are among 11 individuals who completed that climb. It's impressive what these guys have been through and what they continue to push themselves to do. Many thanks to Mike on Intrepid for giving me the heads up about this operation, and I look forward to following them along, and I'll maybe do an update with them at some point. That would be great. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Standing Before the Mast podcast with Chris Heaton, sponsored by Newport Nautical Supply. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.